Grace and peace to you from God our Father and from the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. There's this really cool scene that happens often in action movies. It usually comes kind of near the end of the movie. The good guys have finally caught up with the bad guys. And maybe the bad guys are kind of holed up in this warehouse, this ratty looking building, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The bad guys are not aware that the good guys are hiding out front, getting ready to do something. So the good guys are hiding behind a stack of pallets outside the hideout, and someone says, "Okay, what's the plan?" The hero of the movie says, "Okay, I'm going around back. You come in from the front, but just wait. Don't make a move until you see the sign." And someone says, "Well, what will the sign be?" And the response, "Oh, you'll know, right? Oh, yeah, you'll know." And they do, as the cement truck plows through the building or the missile comes flying out through the big front garage door, destroying both the silence and the door. Don't you wish that we would recognize the signs of God's presence with us, that they would be that clear? Oh, you'll know. Unfortunately, life is almost never that clear, is it? We await signs that will give us affirmation or clarity that will tell us what we should be doing with our lives. We'll wait for a sign that our life is on course, that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And as we wait, we hope that what we're waiting for is worth the hype and the hope. Both Isaiah and John the Baptist are looking for a sign of their time, their day. For Isaiah, he's seeking a sign that God's promise will be kept, that a highway will indeed be made, and God's presence will flow through it. For John, he wants to know if Jesus is, are you the one? Are you the Messiah, or shall we keep waiting? So John tweets his disciples, and he says, ask them, are you the one or are you not? Hashtag promised one. And Jesus says, oh, John, don't you see the signs? The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. So John, we believe, then has his answer. He knows, as any good first century Hebrew would know, Isaiah had said, you wait here by the front door. I'll go around back and enter by the stable. And I'll come into this crazy hideout of sin. Just wait for the sign. And the sign? Here's the most interesting part of this critical moment in the life of John and of Jesus. It's easy to miss because we're looking for that big crash the door down kind of sign that would crash down our walls of doubt. We're looking for a missile to destroy the mundane and break into life with unmistakable clarity. But look what's here, right in the story. It's small, but unmistakable. Trivial to some, but profound to Jesus' disciples. Jesus says to the disciples, are you ready? You go and tell John what you have seen and heard. That's the dramatic big sign that God is breaking into the world and keeping the promises of old. Jesus voices our surprise, or John voices our surprise when he says, are you the one? Now, let's be honest. We've all asked that same question in some way or another. God, are you there? What about the teachings of another religion? Jesus, are you real? Does what you did matter to my everyday life? Why should I trust? Is there reason to be hopeful about the future? Now, we've asked that question in one way or another, and if you deny it, you're lying to yourself. In everyone, we have this innate capacity to question the goodness of life when troubling things happen. So thank you, John, for voicing that question for us. What is true? What is real? What matters? To these questions, Jesus answered, "Go and tell John what you have seen and heard." The truth is that Jesus gives the best possible answer. And that answer? Disciples of mine, you show John the sign. Disciples, you are the sign. You're the sign. 21st century disciples, you're the sign. You thought it would be bigger, better, clearer. You thought someone important would carry this sign. Yep, but we're called by God to take ourselves seriously. As church, we see life as precious. Life can be so quickly cut short, fragile, yet life is filled with wonder and grandeur. Life is ready for us to hope and to wait with patience. We are called by God to stay awake and watch for the signs of this coming. It's a difficult thing to do sometimes in a modern secular world, in a consumerist society. After 2,000 years, we've sort of stopped looking for Christ to come. We've settled for a pale, weak, neon-lit imitation. We schedule office Christmas parties and celebrate family dinners. We buy presents for husbands and wives and children and significant others. We decorate our homes with lights and trees and ornaments. We send out holiday greetings to people all over the country. And we hope that our sanity and our bank account will hold out till the new year. But Jesus calls us in a different kind of way, then and now, to see the signs of God's breaking into the world. Sometimes in the midst of all this, it's hard to see the signs of life in an old faith. Isaiah preached for 40 years to a people who mostly ignored him. He preached in a world full of war, economic uncertainty, and political upheaval. He continually balanced his prophecies of destruction with promises of hope, and yet the people ignored him because the promises of hope were so seldom fulfilled in those days. Today, we hold on to a vision of a hopeful future, a future in which no children starve or fall victim to incurable diseases, a future in which people lay aside their differences in order to worship a common God at a common altar, a future in which peace reigns, where military budgets are pretty much empty, schools, hospitals filled with hopefulness and joy. So we wait, and we're told to keep awake, to trust and believe that God is coming. We continue to look for signs that God is just around the corner. But remember, Jesus doesn't say to the disciples, "You go and tell John to look for the signs." Instead, Jesus says, "Go and tell John what you've seen and heard." In other words, you are the sign. And this is exactly the way God works. If God comes as a baby in a stable, God surely comes in other frail flesh, ours. God comes through us. Our most important calling here is to be a sign of Christ's coming in our families, in our communities, in the world. I'm inviting us to a season of active waiting, of busy anticipation, of participatory readiness. Bottom line, the blind will see when you teach a child to look beyond the color of skin or eye or hair. So be the sign. You be the sign and help them see. The lame will walk when you help carry the burdens of a family member or a friend. So be the sign and help them walk. The leper will be cleansed when the stigma of differences disappears and you reach beyond the walls of hatred, both real and imagined. So go, people of Zion, and be the sign. Pronounce to them their cleansing. The deaf will hear when the loudest voice is the one speaking words of peace and hope, when you tell a friend and family the good news that God is coming. So be the sign and help them hear. The dead are raised when they are forgotten or remembered, when you share the peace of Christ. So be the sign and give the gift of new life. Finally, the poor have good news preached to them when you sit beside them and share a meal at Family Promise, at Faith Kitchen, when you give shelter, when you restore the dignity despite the need. So be the sign. Help them to hear and hope in the gospel. Now, I must warn you, you have to watch out, because God often comes in the back way, in the back door, through you and me. That's why the ELCA adopted this little slogan, God's work, our hands. May it be so among us. Go and be the sign. Amen.